which is TV. They are also graduating level 4, who is equivalent to it. And those kids must go to us. If you may check the colleges that we have in South Africa, around 50 plus, and those N4 also, they are forming part of the matriculate. In order for them to higher institutions, they can enroll in the very same up to their level 4. So, but the challenge is already the school. I'm not talking about the university, the college now. Because the college, they are enrolling those who have passed matric. Already they enroll them, they are about to start with training. What about the one that have passed 25?
Yeah.
Those who have passed matric, have passed level 4. What about them to go to higher education? Which is the biggest challenge. We are having more than million students who roaming around without doing nothing. Just in the way they are being operated. That we are letting them down.
So the backlogs are piling on year in, year out. What's the solution, though?
I might not have a good solution, but at the end of the day, I think the way the system is operated in a higher learning institute, because priority is not not going to be given the one that has passed.
Yeah.
Given those who have passed today, which ones who have passed today, they are going to I can get
Mm. Yeah. Sure.
which is much more challenging because
Yeah, it is.
those who are doing NCT, those who they started with grade 10, grade 11, they come to the Tibet role and test. You know, be rolling higher.
Yeah.
So if you can check South Africa as a whole, all the colleges, each of them, you find all those colleges are graduating with
Mm.
how many?
Yeah.
I might not have an exact number, but one college can have more than uh,
Right.
30,000 or 20,000 students.
All right. Sambulu, thank you for calling. Do call again, and you've gotten us thinking about the system and the systemic challenges as far as higher education is concerned, churning out more matriculants than actually the system can absorb within universities, TVET colleges, and the likes, colleges, universities of technology somewhere in the mix as well, but also throughout that whole system not enough spaces for higher learning of one form or another. That's what Mitsembuluko is talking about there. Lala in Polokwane, good morning.
Good morning, Chiaz, and compliments for the new year.
Compliments to you, man.
Thank you very much.
Mm.
Chiaz, before I tell you what I wanted to tell you today,
Yeah.
I want to just highlight something. You know that all the students who are in the university or in the TVET who are funded by NSF, they are all getting allowance for a laptop. But the students or the learners who are on grade 10 in the schools that are no fee schools, they cannot be funded to get a calculator, scientific calculator.
Mm.
Yet, in the end of the year, we expect them to pass when they are doing their matric.
Sure.
How are they going to pass?
Yo, Lala, that's such an important thing, eh?
Yes, why are we discriminating the people? Why are we discriminating the children? The learner in grade 7 needs to be given the mathematical instrument set. They are not given that. But yet we expect to produce those learners who can be able to compete with other countries in math and science. But we are not equipping them. I heard what the professor said this morning when I was speaking to you, and what also Setu said in KZN. That is true. The problem is in the foundation level. We have teachers who are not well equipped to give sufficient information to these young children in math and science. So this is where they are looking. Math and science, you'll never be in news. We've spoken about it many times. And I think here I say there is a problem in the foundation level. As long as these children are not getting the good teachers. Remember what happened in 2016? The teachers who are teaching grade 4 mathematics,
Yeah.
were taken to go and write a test together with the children who are doing grade 4. The results show that two-thirds of those teachers failed that mathematics. Then how do you expect them, the learners to pass mathematics at the high school level?
Sure, Lala, thank you for
Here's
that.
the problem.
Yeah.
Even and we've been told that 550 schools that they don't even have a single learner who's in 2 years. So this is what is just I don't trust it.
Gotcha. Lala, thank you for that. You've
Thank
gotten
you.
us thinking about that as well. Just as we are talking about resourcing learner support materials being under the spotlight. That point that Lala was making about giving learners at grade 10 a scientific calculator, a maths set, mathematics set. Those things that you get in a do they still come in a box? I haven't been in school in such a long time that I don't even know if it still comes in that form. But I know that those are small things that actually mattered. Let me say mattered when I was in school, having to get a scientific calculator, not that basic calculator, but scientific. And, it might seem like it's not much, but actually, if you don't have that money, you don't have it. That's why you are in that situation in a no fee paying school, because the dynamics are such that, such as your state where you are. Therefore, if the school expects you to provide for yourself, it can actually be a bit of a barrier. But how do we have these conversations like Lala is raising in a context where already just the basics are already very problematic? Let me take one or two voice notes before we get to Rob Byrne and the traffic.
Good morning, Thulas, and that's in Kusho as always. Thulas, what's on my mind today is the election in Myanmar. Thulas, remember there's a sitting president who was ousted by the junta, and the junta has selected the opposition, and the junta has the 1% stake, which is they have a 1% allocation of seats in the parliament. So I wish Donald Trump and the USA can intervene here to us. Thank you, PK.
Hey, PK, I was coming along with you quite nicely until you mentioned that last bit. I don't know where I stand. I don't, to be honest, I've not been following the developments in Myanmar close enough to give you any intelligent comment on it, other than just to be impressed about how plugged in you are with the goings on in Myanmar. I haven't touched base with that story in a while, and perhaps it might be an idea for us to revisit that story once again. I want to take two that have to do with the ANC and its January 8 celebrations over the weekend.
Good morning to us. This is LP. To us, I never thought I would say that the ANC will organize less stadium of 20,000 people capacity, then only to attend 5.5 people in the whole province. ANC is going to last. Trust me, come 2029, they will only have 2.5 supporters. To last LP.
Good morning to Los and the listeners. This is Nati from Cape Town. I think on ANC's birthday, 90% of the attendees there were their deployees and their councillors. So the message is loud and clear. The ANC is going to be taken out of power starting from now on the local elections. Thank you.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Quite heavy getting into Pretoria this morning on the R21. There's been a crash up by Fountain Circle. So if you use that run into central Pretoria, there's a big backlog from the Monument Park side. You might want to come off the highway, use either Botha Avenue or Rigel Avenue to get through quicker. It looks like it's clearing, but there is still a backlog to work through. The N1 North, a crash before Malabongwe. Delays from Bayers Nordier as you line up through Randburg on your way slowly to Four Ways. The N1 North from Devlin through Deepcliff down Uncle Charlie's. We're back to queuing pressure there. Pretoria. A breakdown at Van Buren. Delays coming up from the Elands interchange. Very heavy on your way through to Galuli's this morning. And the breakdown just before Galuli's on the N12 and R24. It's in from Ekurhuleni side. So there's some real pressure on those two highways as well. All of a sudden, the difference between Friday and Monday is monumental in terms of the amount of traffic that is on South African roads as a whole today as we go back to work. There's also a big delay from Keyridge through Cliffdale on your way to Pietermaritzburg. That's a breakdown just between Cliffdale and Hammersdale, if you like. Some heavy pressure running north up to the KwaMashu Highway through Queen Nunty Drive up towards that KwaMashu exit. It's all very heavy. Breakdown between Umgeta Road and Spaghetti Junction, causing some pressure on the N2 South going into that interchange as well. The Cape Town situation, LaBelle Road, southbound through Stickland, closed down towards Willow Road. That's due to a truck crash, which is causing an obstruction, so you'll need to divert there. N7 is very heavy from Goodwood all the way through to Bosmansdam, and a crash going out of Cape Town on Nelson Mandela Boulevard near Melbourne Street, causing delays towards Hospital Bend, but also holding you up through the Bend, heading down the boulevard towards the city centre. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
All right, to this now at 9 minutes to 8. You and I could be paying even more for electricity as the regulator, the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, has reopened a public consultation on a proposed tariff adjustment meant to help Eskom recover up to 76 billion rand in additional revenue. This after the High Court ordered the regulator to re-examine its settlement with Eskom that had been kept secret. Rather than the 54 billion rand figure previously exposed in the media, the regulator's own consultation paper now shows Eskom could recover 76 billion rand once errors in asset valuation and depreciation are corrected, a number that directly affects how much you pay for your next bill. The court directed this process to ensure transparency and public input after finding the earlier behind closed doors deal lacked proper consultation. Let's speak to Professor Vali Padayachi, power and energy expert. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. What just happened? What just happened? How did we go from 54 billion rand to 76 billion rand?
Good morning, Julie, and I'm glad to be invited to greet. I think just to keep it simple, because there's a long story here, Julie. To keep it simple, what had happened was when NERSA announced the tariff, let's call it increases, tariff for the 25 financial year to 28, they did that on the 31st of January last year. And to put a long story short, in making that announcement, NERSA had incurred errors in the revenues of Eskom. Eskom picked up in July. And in July, they obviously, in terms of the process, they couldn't get back to NERSA. They had to get to the court. Order. And pursuant to that court process, my understanding that NERSA interpreted there was no need for a public hearing. So between Eskom and NERSA, they sat in secretive corridors, and they wanted to come to a settlement. But initially, I understood that Eskom had wanted there was a shortfall of 107 billion rand, and they came to a settlement of 54 billion rand. But the court subsequently found that process was illegal, and they had to go back to the drawing board. Having gone back to the going back to the drawing board now, that 107 billion rand figure is now reduced to 76 billion rand. It's still 22 billion rand more than 54 billion rand.
Yeah, look, Prof, the human instinct and the natural instinct has to ask, were we better off with the behind closed doors deal, as secretive and lacking in transparency as it was, given that, with this public consultation, the figure that NERSA is talking about now includes 14 billion rand in returns and 62 billion rand in depreciation. And I know it might sound a bit farcical, but actually, were we better off had we let it slide and let it lie and move on?
Well, I don't want to comment on that aspect. I mean, it could seem logical it could be better off,
Yes.
but I think these are two major organs of state. And in South Africa, we are a constitutional democracy. We operate through the rules
Yeah.
of law and enact. So we've got to follow the law, and this is what the High Court judge uh, pronounced on. So to give you a professional answer, it's not the best case because they were illegal.
Yeah. Look, it's facetious because obviously there was never really an option to do things in a manner
No,
that's
sure.
secretive and lacking in transparency. But what's the big lesson from this process, Prof? Just how NERSA conducts these multi-year price determinations, the role of public consultation, as well as how it interfaces with ESCOM in all of these processes.
I think the big lesson is actually quite simple, truly. NESA, and I work with them quite. I have an excellent relationship with them, but they need to. What's the word? They must stop making errors. Because the impact of the error, as we can see now, is quite significant to many stakeholders, including the end use customer. So they need to stop making errors because they're making more errors than we would like to. But having said that, if they make an error, they need to be transparent and follow the law. Now, even here, between them and ESCOM, uh, I'm not sure who was more guilty than the other. They didn't follow the law. I mean, they went behind secretive doors. So, the long short of the law thing is that if you are an organ of state, especially that deals with public money, public resources, you got to ensure that you are beyond circumspect and all of that. So follow the law,
Yeah.
fully.
And this whole consultation process that is now unfolding, Prof, comes at a time when government itself has now acknowledged that the conversation around electricity seems to be moving from security of supply to an issue of affordability, and now undertakings, including by the Minister of Electricity, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, that there will be efforts to try and bring that down. That looks more and more unlikely right now, given that we are now talking a higher tariff rate. Um, how do you reconcile that there's
Well,
talk
well,
of bringing it down, but in reality, if we are to take this in, we're likely going higher?
I think just to get to the point, definitely see a tariff increase because of the 76 billion header, and I see the figures of about 10.5% being put on the table by some commentators. So we'll definitely have an increase here. But I think if you follow the minister's argument, there will be, and of course from ESCOM, there will be, in my opinion, and I work very closely with ESCOM as well, is that there will be a trajectory of lower increases, real increases going forward. Because, truly, as you've alluded to, the prices currently is astronomically high. And this is not sustainable for business, the economy, and for the ordinary poor person. And even poor, for the end customer. So to answer your question, I would see a all-out effort to drop the prices uh, forward, but there will be a price increase now. So that end of the day, truly, you can have all of these technical improvements from ESCOM and
Yeah.
all of the noises, but if you don't bring the electricity price down, you're wasting time.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you got to have a significant drop in the electricity price so that we get the economy back up and running and we get people to be happy.
Lastly, Prof, from your vantage point and the work that you do, what's the final word on accountability for that costly error on NERSA's side? I remember it being a conversation late last year. I remember my colleague Kathy Motlatlana pushing and pressing really hard on that question of, but someone has got to be held accountable. But I don't recall how it ended.
No, it's definitely, you got to have consequence management. I mean, I repeat, these are major organs of state, you deal with public resources. You got to have that accountability. And I understand that there was one person that was put under suspension and with a follow-up investigation. So NESA has taken that decision. But to answer your question, yes, there has to be consequence management. There has to be effective and efficient consequence management. Otherwise, it must be implemented.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. Professor Vali Padayachi, power and energy expert. Brings us to 8 a.m. On standby is N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, a higher matric pass rate expected and Iran seeks talks amid US military threats. Good morning. Education experts have forecast an increase in the pass rate of the 2025 matric class compared to the previous year. The 2024 matric pass rate was 87.3%, up from 2023's 82.9%, marking the highest national pass rate ever recorded. Basic Education Minister Siviwe Hwahube is expected to announce the results this evening, while individual results are set to be released tomorrow. Professor Nadine Peterson is Dean of the Faculty of Education at the University of Johannesburg.
We expect to see us in the threat. I do think this will be entirely due to the increase, but also the number of mentioned as
Meanwhile, Hwahube says all learners from the matric class of 2025 should be proud of their hard work and determination. She has this message for them.
I want to say congratulations for coming this far, for your discipline, for your effort, for your resilience. You ought to be so proud of it. And I want to remind that South Africa is proud of it. For those who may not have achieved the results that we are hoping, I want to remind you, at the end of the road or the journey, you can try again. And there are multiple opportunities for you to be able.
The Cape Winelands District Municipality's Fire Services says the fire in the Wimmershoek area near Franschhoek remains active. The fire was reported on Wednesday and originated in the Langrug area. Meanwhile, the Overstrand municipality has estimated that fires in the area have cost it more than 6 million rand. Aneshka Root is the Cape Winelands District Municipality's fire spokesperson.
Monitoring and mopping up operations continue in areas where the fire has been contained. No injuries, damage or loss of property have been reported during the operational period. The SPCA was on standby to assist with any animal-related incidents. Fireland conditions will be assessed this morning, after which actions for the next operational period will be determined. The Cape Winelands District Municipality's Fire Services extend our sincere thanks to all individuals and community organizations for their generous donations and ongoing support.
The Mandela family has announced the death of Mama Nolusapo Mandela Perry, the mother of Chief Mandla Mandela. She died yesterday at the age of 76. The Mvezo Royal Council and the Mandela family have requested privacy during this period. And finally, US President Donald Trump says Iran's leadership has called seeking to negotiate following his threats of military action in response to the killing of protesters. He's told reporters that a meeting is being set up, but the US may have to act before that happens. Speaking on his plane, Air Force One, he cautioned Iran not to carry out their threats to attack US targets in the region.
If they do that, we'll consider things targets they wouldn't believe. If they do that, we will hit them at levels that they've never been hit before. And they won't even believe it. I have options that are so strong. So, I mean, if they did that, it'll be met with a very, very powerful force.
Recapping the top story, education experts have forecast an increase in the pass rate of the 2025 matric class compared to the previous year. Basic Education Minister Siviwe Hwahube is expected to announce the results this evening, while individual results are set to be released tomorrow. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Want to know how much money Outsurance saves 35-year-old Zanai on her car insurance?
A whopping 1,180 Rand.
That's an incredible 1,180 Rand monthly saving on Zanai's 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLA. And the out bonus she'll get?
It is close to 6,500 Rand in 3 years if I'm claim-free.
Nice. How much money could Outsurance save you? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer in FSP. TCs and information online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. Soccer, Barcelona edging Real Madrid to lift the Spanish Super Cup. And we bring you tennis action. Poland claiming their first United Cup title with a victory over Switzerland. All the details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Highway delays both sides of Joburg today. Crash in one north at Malabongwe. Traffic from Vilfred Park up through Randburg under pressure. And the other side of town, a stationary truck at Van Buren, just before Van Buren. So the run out of Albert and Jerviston, heavy from Elan's interchange up into that Bedford View area. The Mike 1 boys into the Crown, the M2 from Joe Slovo to Crown. Both of those highways back to business this morning with heavy queues. And the breakdown at Galuli's means the N12 and R24 routes in from the Ekurhuleni side under pressure. Stationary vehicle leaving Pietermaritzburg near Market Road, so queues coming off the bypass Durban bound. If you're heading to Pietermaritzburg, the first of today's breakdowns with us between Cliffdale and Hammersdale, that's a heavy queue back to Key Ridge. If you're Pietermaritzburg bound, that's one of those days, I'm afraid. A breakdown on the N2 South between Spaghetti Junction, or between Umgeta Road and Spaghetti Junction. N2 South heavy from Inanda, and there's quite a backlog on the N2 North this morning, making your way up through Queen Nandi towards the Komarshu Highway exit. Cape Town, N1 inbound, generally busier with queues down towards the Sable Road exit. The N7 from Goodwood through to Bosmansdam is pretty extreme this morning. Some big queues there. And a crash on Nelson Mandela Boulevard, leaving the city centre near Melbourne Road, also having an impact on the inbound traffic flow as well. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
7 minutes after 8. 7 minutes after 8. Welcome to it. The third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM 104 to 107 on this Monday morning. Lots to reflect on among the stories that we've covered in the last 2 hours, and a few people already weighing in on the various topics that we covered. Someone here, for example, talks about the ANC's 114th anniversary out at Moruleng Stadium in the Northwest, and says, Northwest people, they are showing the ANC leaders that they are tired of their empty promises, and I hope 2027, the ANC will suffer the consequences of their actions, says someone there. That message not signed off. Anonymous, someone who actually signed off but says, I want to remain anonymous, says, listening to you speak of the farm equity schemes, I work on a farm that belongs to a community trust since 2018. I just wanted to know, does the scheme address all farm workers per se, or is it limited to the beneficiaries of the specific trust? It's a good question, and my answer is I honestly don't know about the full workings of these farm equity schemes. But as we've started the conversation today, it might be worthwhile to get another perspective that will add to our knowledge and understanding of how these schemes work, but also where they are, failing, and what are the challenges and how do we address them. The audits that have been announced by Minister Nyonso are just one aspect. In another example of the farm equity schemes, where the minister didn't give much detail, the government is seeking to claw back some 65 million rand that they say, something has gone awry as far as that is concerned. So what we'll try and do is in the coming days, we'll identify other voices that may add to our knowledge and understanding of this particular area of land reform, land restitution, land justice in our country. MK in Durban says, talking about AFCON, says, As South Africans, we need to celebrate Abongile Tom and Zakhele Siwela for their outstanding officiating performances. I alone am proud of them. They really are representing us well, says MK in Durban. Thank you for that, and keep the conversations going. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes 0614 104 107. In fact, I'll play a few of your voice notes before we get to our next conversation with Ken Resnick, which is about this week and the psychological and mental health pressures that the week ahead, as far as education is concerned, can exert.
I don't love school. I don't love trying to learn like everyone else learns and falling behind when I don't understand. But I do love learning. I do love working to my own schedule and getting the support when I need extra help. I do love UCT Online High School because I do love my future. Apply online before the 19th of January.
Clientele is here to safeguard you and your family with compassion because life happens. Be part of a family that truly cares. Our funeral dignity plans have helped South Africans bury their loved ones with dignity for more than 30 years. Let us help you create a meaningful tribute that honors your life and those of your loved ones. We pay out within 24 hours and you will get double accident cover with a clientele funeral plan. Our plans are affordable. Pick the option that suits your needs. Easy to apply, no medical examinations and no paperwork. SMS SAFM to 48031. That's 48031. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
A home is more than bricks and mortar. It's dignity. It's legacy. It's the heart of every community. From informal settlement upgrades and title deeds to housing subsidies, roads, lights, and water, Human Settlements is delivering more than homes. We're building safer, serviced, stronger communities. Want to know more about how you can benefit? Visit www.dhs.gov.za or follow DHS on social media platforms. Together, we're building a South Africa where everyone belongs. The Department of Human Settlements, shaping the future.
Thulasizwe Simelane is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
All right, let's go to one or two of your voice notes before we go to the next interview. I want to go to this one about potholes in Makhanda. I can relate. Living in the area of northwestern Johannesburg, our potholes are extraordinary. But as extraordinary as they are, I don't imagine they are the worst. So those areas around Boskrane, Rand Park Ridge, that area, the potholes are horrible. And it seems no one really cares. But this person in Makhanda, I don't even want to enter into a debate. I accept that it is possible that as bad as our potholes are, there are areas where things are worse.
Good morning, Thulasizwe, concerned citizen from Makhanda. I think Makhanda can compete to be the pothole capital of South Africa. We are riddled with potholes. It is ridiculous. So yes, another pothole capital, Makhanda.
Yeah, no, look, I won't contest you. In fact, it's gotten to a point where you leave the road and drive on the side for a bit before you come back a bit later on. I've told the story before that when I was based in Zimbabwe, we used to have a joke that says, how do you know a person is drunk driving in Zimbabwe? If they're driving straight on the road, something is wrong in Harare. He used to say, no, the police will stop you immediately if you're driving straight. If you're zigzagging, that driver is not drunk because they're still trying to avoid the potholes. We are now there in many parts of Johannesburg where if you're driving straight, something is wrong with you. You have to be zigzagging. It's that bad in some parts. But Makhanda, I take it. Let me take this one that has to do with the metric results.
Hi, Julius. Hoping you well. This is Daniel. Julius, you know, we as parents, we get so excited when our kids have passed matric. But the big question is, where are they going to work when the unemployment is so high among the youth? That's my big worry. That's my big worry, Julius. Thanks.
Yeah, Daniel, thank you for that. It really is a concern when you gauge the state of the economy and the low rate of absorption of new entrants into the jobs market. it just adds to that anxiety. I suppose the approach we take is one milestone at a time, right? We celebrate the milestone of having finished 12 years or so of schooling and getting to the summit of that before we start now thinking about, okay, what's the next chapter? But absolutely, that concern is something that we all live with. In fact, that ties in nicely with our next conversation.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So this week combines matric results, new grades, and school reopening into a period that can feel overwhelming for families and learners alike. You might be juggling logistics, emotional stress, and anticipation all at once, making routine feel anything but routine. For numerable households, the collision of results release and the start of classes raises anxiety and uncertainty about what comes next. Just links nicely to the conversation we were having with Daniel a few minutes ago. It's a moment that reveals how education seasons can hit us not just practically, but emotionally as well. Let's speak to Ken Resnick, educational psychologist, who joins us now. Good morning to you, Ken, and thank you for your time. What about this week, the confluence of events in the education space, primary, secondary education, as well as tertiary education, makes it a point of vulnerability for psychological and mental health well-being?
Yes, so this is quite a broad topic, there's minimal of time. So let's have a look. You've got your going right back to the pre-nursery school kids that are starting for the first time, then grade one, and then, of course, high school, going from primary school to high school, and then, of course, the matric results, which open doors. That's what it does. It doesn't mean that kids are ready to make the right decision. There's a whole lot of factors in it. I thought, after you invited me, I thought maybe the big focus, and you have to look at it, the kids got in grade one, because I think mom goes through quite a lot of stress.
Yeah,
That's the beginning of their school life. Some kids are not quite school ready. Then, of course, you've got a lot of kids that are peer resistant. They cry a lot. They don't want to go. Moms have to go and sit with them in the desk till they settle down. Those are the sort of warning signs to the parent that maybe those kids are too deep in them, that the parent's been there for them all the time, and not well socialized enough to just personally cope with school. So the thing is that parents have to realize the schools are used to this. Drop the child. If the school says maybe stay for a few minutes, fine. But generally the kids do settle down very quickly, using that as one example, which causes a lot of stress in grade one. So that is why I thought we'd maybe start with that. You're welcome to ask any questions.
Yes.
So, and what they're going to do is a whole topic on itself, in terms of what they're going to do.
We'll come with the metric class of 2025 in a moment. But if I'm hearing you correctly, is we as parents, as far as the grade ones are concerned, we as parents can actually translate and transfer some of our own anxieties onto the children unwittingly. We can do that.
Definitely. It's a big problem, especially today. We're tending to overprotect parents, overprotect the kids. They're not being left alone at parties, have a mom all the time. Now all of a sudden they're going to a very big school. They might have been a very small pre-primary, and it's a whole new world. And of course, mom gets anxious. So the one big tip is moms have to try and take it in their stride, because the children pick up that anxiety very quickly, and they'll also manipulate. I want to go and cry, and mom's sort of heart's breaking. Now she's got to let her kid go, and she's not sure if the kid's going to survive the day. They've got to depend on the teachers. Teachers are often kids with them. Child will settle down. Is there any issues we will? A lot of parents aren't comfortable being there. You've got phone at school 5 or 6 times just to see if the kid has. It's a warning sign to parents that kids are too dependent. So much being involved in extramural activities and so on. So it's a quite nice warning sign for parents if the kids really, really don't want to leave them. It can happen very easily for the first term.
So let's talk then about that class of matric 2025. More than 900,000 grade 12 learners expecting to receive their results. There's a comment attributed to SADC's Roshni Pabu Sita, who talks about matric results often feeling like a judgment on intelligence and worth. Why do we as society put so much and make it such a high stakes grade, this grade 12? Why do we invest so much in it? And do we do it even to the point of mental health, psychological health peril for these pupils who set for these exams, who already are anxious as to the outcome?
Yeah. Again, kids have very little idea of what's out in terms of careers. You ask average matric how many careers they can name, they normally name 4 or 5. Meanwhile, there are thousands of options there. So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made because parents are going to see further. How much time has been invested in actually looking at that next? Often kids just want to follow a career that sounds nice, what their friends are doing. But they need to have made a lot of inquiries. Are kids ready for varsity? Do they need a gap year where they need to build their confidence, especially if they're indecisive? Because otherwise they end up getting to varsity and then they drop out the first year. They have a lot of dropouts first. Doesn't mean they can't, but it does mean they tried something without investigating. Does it really fulfill their interests? Do they have high enough marks? So the child's got themselves have to have that grit and determination to want to succeed. And unfortunately, that's not there, and they're just doing it for their parents. Well, the first year at university, a lot of fun. But they have that self-discipline to know, are they really ready for that first step varsity? Do they have to grow up and some sort of gap year, become more independent so that they can become more certain as to what career they want to follow? And do they have the realistic subjects that open the door? Because all we want to do in the trick is see what doors have been opened. And a lot of that can depend on the subjects that are taken from the trick and other factors as well. So it's a big choice when you think they've got such little knowledge of the bigger world out. And so many of these kids are on gaming. The number of kids I see, when I say kids in the trick, they want to be professional gamers. So they've been far too much on their PlayStation, think that the world's going to open, they're going to make millions. So a lot of the kids are not in a position to make a decision. Either the parents are often making a decision for the kid. They don't know their kid. So the child needs maybe some type of career test that can look for the child's ability to persevere, to not give up, look at their interests, to make sure whatever career they choose, they're going to be interested. A more objective type of assessment so that can help the parents rather than mom wants me to be an accountant because I want to make a lot of money, or a doctor because she wants to be proud of me. So it's a really big decision. And the parents need to help here because often they are making a choice for the child. And problem.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Ken Resnick, educational psychologist, just giving you some of the tips on how to navigate this week, right, which is going to come with a bit of anxiety on both ends of the spectrum at the start of the school, whether it's a grade change, new methods of learning. You're going to a grade where instead of being in one class the whole day, you're going to be moving around a little bit, new school uniform, new friends. It's going to be anxious, and of course, not forgetting the matric learners who are waiting to hear the outcome.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable. You receive up to 745,000 Rand worth of legal services per year. Our range of plans include cover for you, your spouse, children, and extended family. Plans include cover for civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Whether it's protection orders, gender-based violence, uncontested divorce, or poor service, your Clientele Legal lawyer will be there to assist you. Our services are convenient. Simply pick up the phone and call your lawyer or send us an email and we'll get back to you. All plans include a bail benefit of up to 5,000 Rand and we'll go to the police station and pay it for you. Plus, Clientele Legal offers you 24-hour telephonic legal advice. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
With increased holiday traffic across South Africa and through our regional borders, road safety is more important than ever. Let us all be custodians of safe road behavior. Don't drink and drive. Don't drink and jaywalk. Don't drink and text. Every time you look at your phone while driving, you lose about 5 seconds of concentration, enough to cause a crash with devastating consequences. Stay alert. Stay responsible. Brought to you by the Department of Transport, moving South Africa forward.
Want to know how much money OUTsurance saves 35-year-old Zanai on her car insurance?
A whopping 1,180 Rand.
That's an incredible 1,180 Rand monthly saving on Zanai's 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLA. And the out bonus she'll get?
It is close to 6,500 Rand in 3 years if I'm claim-free.
Nice. How much money could OUTsurance save you? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer in FSP. TCs and information online.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, let me come back to the topic of potholes. Someone wants to weigh in on that. I wonder if this person is from yet another pothole capital somewhere in the country.
Morning, Thulas. I'm actually contesting for the pothole capital in the area of Newcastle or Sizweni.
Yeah.
There are so much potholes. They are so big that when it rains, they turn into a river.
Yo.
So I think Sizweni in Newcastle is number one pothole capital. Thanks, Bongiwe here.
Bongiwe, thank you for that. And yeah, we make light of it because that's how we cope as South Africans. But honestly, this is unacceptable. Selma says it's potholes that you hit a pothole and the radio station will change. It's totally unacceptable. These are basics. And this is not to say that with the rains that happen, road infrastructure won't deteriorate. It will happen. But there are parts in our cities where it seems as if they've stopped trying. They've given up. Rainy season comes and it goes. And then there was some time ago issues about the asphalt that's used to fix roads was in short supply, and then we're dealing with a lot. We are honestly dealing with a lot in our country.
This is SAFM Sport with Sai Khan.
Know who didn't hit a pothole? Barcelona.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't hit a
And,
pothole.
oh, wow. They definitely potholes last night. I think Real Madrid couldn't dodge Barcelona last night. So, yeah, Barcelona drove straight to winning. Unbelievable. What a night it was in this thrilling El Clasico final, which was played in Saudi Arabia. The score, Real Madrid 3. Well, it was great to see with Barcelona as well. They were 3 and Real Madrid 2. What a wonderful win for them. Victory in the hands of Barca, their 16th Spanish Super Cup title, and feeling quite a dramatic night defined by the goals and the classic El Clasico drama. Meanwhile, back to AFCON, where the Moroccan defender Roma Saiz has raised eyebrows after stepping into the Manchester United debate. Despite his international teammate Nazer Mazraoui currently plying his trade at Old Trafford, Saiz didn't hold back following United's decision to part ways with manager Ruben Amorim last week.
I think United is very complicated since Ferguson left the club, honestly. It's always been hard. I think there is a lot of pressure inside the club, especially also from the legend. It's not helping so much the players. So I hope they will become better because we have Mazraoui who's playing for United, so I want the best for him. And I think everyone wants to see United playing Champions League because it's historical club. So I hope for them it's getting better. But I'm more worried about Wolves than Man United.
That's the Moroccan defender Roma Saiz here on the morning brief. Let's go to tennis action. Poland claiming their first United Cup title with 1 victory over Switzerland in Sydney. And Daniel Medvedev opened his 2026 campaign by lifting the Brisbane International title, beating the American Brandon Nakashima in straight sets in the final. Medvedev's 22nd career ATP title. And motorsport, Britain's Matthias Ekstrom claimed day 7 of the Dakar Rally, while Qatar's Nasser Al Attiyah retained the overall lead in the car category. South Africa's Lata slipped to third overall after a late stop cost him time. In the bikes category, Australia's Daniel Sanders extended his overall lead with stage 8, the longest of the rally, which is looming later today. That's your sport. He'll be looming up with more sport around 12. That's John Feliter. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, some learners at the Masiala Progressive Secondary School in Seshego outside of Polokwane in Limpopo are optimistic that they've performed well. This comes ahead of the Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Gwagube's announcement of the 2025 matric results this evening. Meanwhile, education experts have forecast an increase in the pass rate of the 2025 matric class compared to the previous year. And the Cape Winelands District Municipality's Fire Services says the fire in the Wimmershoek area near Franschhoek remains active. The fire was reported on Wednesday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Volumes are starting to lighten off generally as we get up towards this time of morning across, Gauteng, if you like, generally. As a barometer, we can see just lessening volume. So, therefore, some of those delays are easing pretty quickly. There's a lot of pressure, though, around Crown Interchange this morning. First time this year that you're stuck in heavy pressure. Mike 1 from Gold Reef City up into Crown. And behind that, the M2 coming through from Joe Slovo, all backed up to get into that Mike 1 or to get through Crown and into that Crown area. Now, going out of Durban, the M3 remains a problem for those heading to Pietermaritzburg. There's a big backlog of traffic. A stationary truck between Cliffdale and Hammersdale in the roadworks. One lane open, queues back as far as Key Ridge. If you know the old road up through Hillcrest, Borters Hill, Drummond, and you come back on at Cato Ridge, that's the way to be going this morning. Breakdown between Umgeda Road and Spaghetti Junction, the N2 South jam packing going into that one. And Cape Town, it's been a real back to traffic out of nowhere situation on the N7 this morning, northbound. It stays really heavy. Big queues from Goodwood, from Four Tracker Road, all the way through to the Bosmansdam Road exit. The elevated freeway inbound is slow, and there's just a bit of queuing traffic now coming in on the N2, passing Khayelitsha. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
And for that, we turn once again to Ndauling Lechela, who's got the last update for the morning. Ndauling, let's talk relief for consumers on the continent as global rice prices stay low.
That's right, Sulas. Now, major rice exporting countries, including India, Thailand, and Vietnam, are holding large supplies and are competing aggressively with buyers. This has given importers more bargaining power, encouraging them to delay purchases in anticipation of better prices. Now, the prolonged price pressure is good news for price-sensitive markets such as our continent, Africa, where rice is a key staple for millions of households. Lower international prices could help boost inflation and reduce the cost of basic meals. However, the outlook is less positive for farmers in Asia, which produce almost 90% of the world's rice. Exporters struggling to clear excess stock. Farm incomes are expected to remain under strain as prices rise. Industry analysts say the imbalance between supply and demand is likely to keeping rice prices under pressure for much of it.
Let's talk currencies. What are our expectations as far as the
Yeah.
rand is concerned and a projection for the rest of the year?
So major financials are expected to see continued strength in the rand, and this is according particularly to Goldman Sachs, which says the local currency is supported by falling interest rates and stronger public finances. The rand ended last year almost 13% stronger against the dollar, its best annual performance in more than a decade. This was helped, of course, by a weaker dollar globally. Bank says further gains are possible if global growth remains steady and the US rather continues cutting interest rates. South Africa is also expected to benefit from lower political risk in the near term compared with other emerging markets facing elections, as well as higher precious metal prices. Goldman Sachs says inflation and lower borrowing costs could lift domestic demand. Banks and retailers among the main beneficiaries of lower interest rates. Mining shares could also gain from gold prices, but recent data showing weakness in the country's manufacturing sector, the PMI data we got recently, may limit short-term momentum for the currency.
All right, lastly, Dowling, wrap it up nicely for us and just give us a projection of the kind of trading day we can expect on this Monday.
So local news flow and international developments are likely to influence activity. We could possibly see showing from the JSE. The rand, in the meantime, continues to trade firmer at a 3-year high. It's sitting at 16.45 to the greenback. Also trending higher this morning are oil prices. While traders keep a close eye on US Venezuela tensions, attention has shifted to continued protests in Iran. There are heightened fears of potential supply disruptions there, and so that's pushing prices higher. Crude trading close to $62 a barrel. Moving back to equities, stateside futures are in the red. Fed Chair Jerome Powell accused President Trump of intimidation over the Department of Justice probe. And then lastly, in Asia, on that front, contract closed the first day of the week in positive terms.
All right, Dowling, thank you for today. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And Dowling Lechela has kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets.
30-year-old Dineo knows all about saving on her car insurance with Outsurance.
I'm saving 1,094 rands.
That's an unbelievable 1,094 Rand monthly saving on Dineo's 2025 Kia Sonet.
This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people. Education, and tell you that the Education Quality Assurer Umalusi confirming the release of the 2025 matric results across all major assessment bodies, even as it withholds the results of pupils implicated in a major exam paper leak. The decision follows a thorough investigation into breaches involving mathematics, physical sciences, and English home language papers, while 40 candidates, and 2 officials have been investigated. Umalusi says the integrity of the exams overall remains intact. Let's hear more on that. I'm joined by Biki Liputa, who is Senior Manager of Public Relations and Communications at Umalusi. Good morning, and thank you for your time this morning. Naturally, we would start with you certifying and approving the release of the results based on everything else you've done as far as quality assurance is concerned. But there is this glaring issue around this exam leak that happened, exam paper leak that happened. Talk to that. When you assess it holistically with the work that has happened, the National Investigative Task Team that was announced by the department having done its work, what's your assessment of its implications and impact on the overall integrity of the exam?
Good morning to Thulasizwe and good morning to the listeners. Thanks for the opportunity. In terms of your question, we did indicate during our approval meeting that we received the report from the National Investigation Task Team, and the report is very clear that there are 8 schools implicated, and from those 8 schools, it was discovered that only 4 learners are the suspects in this case. And the number of subjects, we are talking here about 3 maths, physical science, as well as English. Now, going back to the 8 schools, this is 8 schools out of 7,000 schools that wrote the examination. And we're talking here about 40 learners out of over 600,000 learners that wrote the subject concerned. So on the basis of the report that we have received, it was quite a comprehensive and detailed report because what they did, they looked at unusual patterns of performance from Tshwane, from Gauteng, and across the country. And that investigations revealed that the issues are contained within the 8 schools that we are talking about. And within the 8 schools, they are talking about 40 learners. And here we are talking about 40 learners out of a total population of over 903,000. On the basis of that and the work that Umalusi has done, we reached a conclusion that there is nothing to worry about as far as the overall integrity of the 2025 NSC examination result is concerned.
But a decision is being made, isn't it, Biki, about withholding the results of these 40 learners while further investigations are being undertaken. And you, as Umalusi, approve of that decision.
Correct. We do approve the decision because in terms of policy, when learners are implicated in irregularities, the decision has to be such that their results are withheld until the investigation has reached its logical conclusion. So what will then happen going forward is that the department will have to call in the learners who are implicated to interview them because that's what the process takes. Interview them until they reach a final conclusion, which conclusion will then indicate what kind of sanctions will have to be meted. And as we're talking about sanctions, I can just indicate that if indeed found that they were, all of them found that they were involved in this kind of irregularity, they can receive a punishment of 3 examination cycle barring. So that is one of the things that would. Of course, in terms of the employees concerned, there will be other labor relations processes that the department will have that day.
Just as a last point on this issue, Biki, I don't know if you are at a point as Umalusi where you are having conversations about learnings from this incident that have to do with the age of digital technologies and communications that make ease of sharing of, such items as improperly acquired metric exam papers. Are you starting to think about perhaps what you might ask the department going forward, what loopholes they may have to close that will continue to secure the integrity of the exam?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you very much. And even the report, in its recommendations section, does indicate that they need to tighten up things as far as those issues are concerned. We are also talking, as Umalusi, in terms of what mechanisms can we put in place just to verify that after they would have strengthened their system, just to verify that there are no leaks. Yes, we are looking, it's a great lesson for everybody in the system. But as we have said before, we can have strong systems, but systems are driven by human beings. We rely entirely on the integrity of the people who drive the system. But overall, we are saying because we are talking about 40 learners out of a population of 900,000, we are comforted that the overall integrity has not been dented. But we are too worried that even one is one too many. It's for that reason that we are in conversations, not only with the Department of Education, in conversation with everybody who administers exams in the country, to see how best we can continuously improve our systems to avoid the recurrence of this phenomenon.
All right, so before we part ways then, let's turn to the overall systemic integrity of the exam. Talk to me about your level of satisfaction about all the processes that needed to happen, standardization, and aggregation, as well as just overall your sense of the extent to which all the papers written were of sufficient difficulty or, adequate ease, such that, if you do enough work and you are diligent, you stood a good chance of passing, as well as the work that then went towards marking the papers. Overall, what's your comment on all of those processes?
Well, overall, Umalusi is satisfied, beginning with the moderation of question papers. All the question papers that were written, they were written after they were given the stamp of approval by Umalusi external moderators. These are professional people. They have been in the system for years, and they apply a policy which has been approved nationally. So we are happy with regards to the question papers that were administered, because prior to approval, they looked at whether the question paper sufficiently covers the curriculum, whether the paper sufficiently covers the different cognitive levels, which will tell you how difficult or how easy or how balanced the question paper is. Is on the same issue of difficulty. Let me just indicate that in terms of policy, every question paper has to have a certain proportion of questions categorized as easy, another proportion categorized as moderately difficult, and then the last proportion of questions categorized. So the question paper has to have easy, difficult, and moderately difficult. On the base of that, they then approve question paper. And then the papers were administered and then they were marked. During the marking process, Umalusi deployed its marking verifiers to check whether marking happened in line with the approved marking memorandum. And prior to that, there were discussions in terms of each of the 68 marking memorandum, so that we are making sure that there is consistency in terms of marking across the country. So issues that were raised prior to marking were then discussed within the marking standardization discussions, and then the final memorandum was circulated across the country. Now, the final process was then the standardization of learner marks. This is a process that Umalusi conducts after the marks have been uploaded onto the computer system. When the Assessment Standards Committee of Umalusi standardizes, they look at the performance of learners this year relative to how the previous 5 years learners performed. And in arriving at its decision, the Assessment Standards Committee is guided by different types of pieces of evidence. They receive narrative reports, they receive research reports, they receive statistical information, and in conjunction with the approved standardization principle, they look at each subject in non-iterative, and then they make their own decisions on the basis of evidence for them. And for that reason, the executive committee of Umalusi then considered all the reports, and then on the basis of the work that has gone into this, we are happy to approve. So it is for that reason that on Friday, they gave approval to all assessment bodies to release the results, except for the results of learners who are implicated in irregularities. Not only the 40, there are other kinds of irregularities that happen during examinations, and various examination bodies have been told withhold those until they reach final conclusions of.
All right, that's quite curious though, Piki, and you place it right at the end. I was about to say, let's conclude, but talk to the other irregularities that lead to you saying you approve the withholding of pupils' exam results beyond the 40 that we discussed that, were implicated allegedly in this leak. What are some of the examples of those irregularities?
Generally, there are two types of irregularities in the system. There are those that we call administrative irregularities. For example, a learner receives a mathematics question paper instead of mathematical literacy. That is one type under administrative. And the other category is called behavioral offenses, when sometimes learners get assisted by invigilators. Sometimes there's a phenomenon of group copying happening in this center, in this particular province, and so on and so on. So what happens? This, when they are picked up, the relevant province then submit them to the National Irregularities Committee. And all these issues are discussed during the meetings of the National Irregularities Committee. And then decisions are taken on the basis of the evidence that gets presented. When the Department of Basic Education or any other assessment body comes to Umalusi, they report on all the irregularities that were discovered during the examinations and how they handle them. They make recommendations to Umalusi. Then Umalusi Executive Committee looked at the evidence before them. They make their own decision. So overall, a decision that has been taken is that the result of all learners, including the 40 who were implicated or who are implicated in the must be withheld pending finalization of the investigation by the relevant
All right.
assessment body.
Thank you for that. Piki Lipota, Senior Manager for Public Relations and Communications at Umalus.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just going to zoom in on the Crown interchange area of Joburg. There are some delays here. Probably the heaviest highways around Joburg. The Mike 1 from Boyson's going up into Crown, and the M2 from Joe Slovo getting through to Crown heavy as well. A little bit of traffic here and there on the remaining highway networks around Gauteng, but nothing that is seriously going to hold you up. There are some protesters that are moving in from the Eastland area towards Trinity House this morning. So they've come in on Stormful Road, currently making their way through Soutpanburg Road. So if you're on that run through that part, the Rittendale part of Pretoria on Soutpanburg, heading towards sort of Referi, if you like, there are some delays along that routing. Durban to Pietermaritzburg stays heavy with a breakdown today just around the Key Ridge Cliffdale area. That traffic going up Key Ridge on towards Cliffdale into the roadworks remains heavily backed up. And Cape Town, earlier crash involving a taxi on Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound, but it had an impact both ways. That is clear. The boulevard running nice. Elevated freeway congested entering the city centre, and the N7 still under some pressure towards Bosmansdam. Queues back as far as Franz Conradi Drive. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, unfair blacklisting, or an uncontested divorce, Clientele Legal offers professional legal services to all South Africans. Our plans are affordable, and you receive up to 745,000 rand worth of legal services per year. We come.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack like that for a finance guy, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.
The reality is that private funders do not just thoughtlessly throw their resources around.
It is one thing to get a backtrack.
With your calls, let me start with Vuyiswa in Parktown. It's been a while, Vuyiswa. Good morning to you, and you have feminism on your mind this morning.
Feminism in the markets.
Mm-hmm.
I said to do. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I refer to the current development in the USA and what is happening, the invasion of Venezuela, and all what is happening now that Trump is doing. Why are the markets not, please ask me Dowling tomorrow morning, why are the markets not reactive? Because apparently these markets seem to be practicing apartheid. Because if it was us now, the rand will be devalued to nothing. And number two is feminism.
Sorry, before you move, Vuyiswa, the story that I heard, the explanation I had, particularly as it regards it regards to the oil price, was that yes, Venezuela has massive, the largest reserves, but in terms of its contribution currently, it isn't what it used to be, and it isn't what it should be. And therefore, just at least that one market, as far as the crude oil market is concerned. But
I hear you. I hear you. The thing is the crime.
Yeah.
The crime that Trump is committing, the terror. Why are the markets? Why is the US dollar not devalued?
Yes, I hear.
Yes. And number two is feminism. Where are they? But you guys always, interview that are pro, women. And when Did you see what was happening in Minnesota? How that woman was manhandled
saw
by
that.
these
Yeah.
men.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's happening in Sudan, it's happening elsewhere. It's happening here in South Africa. We are being, terrorized by men who are doing crimes
Yeah.
and taking our phones, the debts and everything else. Where is this specialist of feminism? What are they? They're quiet because they get funding from the US, so they are afraid to touch their own boss. What are they when this thing is happening?
All right, Vuyiso, I hear you. Thank you for that. That's Vuyiso out in Parktown on two separate issues. Let me go to Tabile in Kimberley. Good morning, Tabile.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Yes. On the issue of education,
Yes.
the involvement of parents is very crucial. I was the chairperson of the SG, and my son excelled. Every time when I went to his school, he would call his friends and say to them, "That's my father. That's my son." And he performed very well. So as parents, we need to be involved. Like the person who was talking that for the first time they're going to school, you just drop them off and leave them. They are attached to the parent. So there needs to be a space for them just to automatize and then the parent can.
Yeah.
So that's the first one.
Yeah.
The second one, you're speaking with the guy on agriculture, saying that let's learn from failures and successes from others. I have a friend in Kuruman, Pakistan. He repairs my cell phone. One time I asked him, "Hey, Mona, where did you go to school for this?" He said, "No, he started repairing cell phones at grade 7. He never took a textbook. He was just hands-on." So we can learn from others and improve our education system.
All right, Tabile, let's leave it there. Thank you for that input. Tabile in Kimberley. And lastly, AB in Durban. Good morning.
Good morning, Tulas, and I'll try to be very quick.
Sure.
When it comes to the news, context is very important. The Western media is very selective in the way it reports issues, especially if it wants to promote a particular narrative. Quick example is Hamas breaking out of Gaza and taking Israeli captives. Left out of the discourse is that after Hamas decided to change course and take part in the political process and it actually won the elections overwhelmingly, Israel immediately put it under a suffocating siege where Israel hardly allowed anything to enter. Even fishermen in the boat were shot at. And, Israel regularly bombed Gaza to show its power. It was referred to as mowing the lawn. Calculated how many calories Gazans needed to keep them above starvation level, and so allowed food to meet this need. Hamas broke out on October 11th, and then we heard about 40 beheaded babies and so on, and very little about how many of Israelis were actually killed by the Israeli military under what Israel calls the Hannibal Directive, as reported by Israeli newspaper Haaretz. A quick point about the huge demonstrations in Iran. The context is very clear. When America's close friend, the brutal regime of the Shah, was booted out, revolution by young people in 1979, America, under Israel's instructions, put Iran under a suffocating siege. The banks were not allowed to do business with the outside world, so Iran could purchase nothing, and it has one of the second largest oil and gas reserves in the world, but blocked from selling it. For example, under U.S. pressure, South Africa had to cancel importing Iranian oil. Let me give you one very quick example. Last week, the Iranian rial was at 1.42 million to $1, a 56% drop in value in 6 months. Food prices have soared by 72% in 1 year. So context is important. Yeah. People are desperate and taken to the streets mainly because they are suffering because of the horrible sanctions that has devastated the country.
AB, thank you for that. And I completely agree. Context is really crucial in the coverage, especially for those who are at the front lines and much closer to the situation. But sadly, you don't always get the context that you need, which is why it's important to balance your news sources. Just get it from multiple points so that you are able to read between the lines as to what is happening. I want to take two quick ones on potholes.
Bratulas, you make me laugh when I hear about all these potholes because if you can come to the Western Cape, even in big townships like Ceres, Luli, Renosta, you will never see potholes. In fact, in our big townships, there's a car that is driving around looking for potholes. So it's surprising. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not South Africa. When I hear all these stories about all these provinces, Western Cape has no match in South Africa.
That must be nice.
Past Cape Town.
Driving around looking for potholes. So we can't even imagine what that feels like.
Good morning, Thulas. This is Nathan Bada from Mkambatin. I'm also campaigning for the pothole capital. You see the road from Pietermaritzburg to Mbambanga in Matungu. That road is terrible. Even if you are driving a foot, it's terrible. It's pothole everywhere. Everywhere. Thanks, Thulas.
All right. Thank you for that. And thank you for listening and your robust engagement as always. Kete Mohlahlana is back. Could tell you if you paid me why she wasn't here last week. It all had to do in part with the celebration, a small celebration, anniversary of the day that she was born. Just a few years ago, not so many years ago. But she's back in the hot seat with you this morning with the talking point. But that's coming up after the news with Ann Musa. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, and you've been briefed.
And then Sky, hey?
Somebody just WhatsApped me to say that she has a daughter who has hearing loss.
Corruption in South Africa has reached disgraceful levels.
First things first, let's get to my daily that's my point feature. So, did you see Cristiano Ronaldo cry yesterday?
This is SAFM. This is SAFM.
Just tell me about how this concert series fits in with what you are trying to do with these young people.